Hi, I'm Taylor. In today's video, we are going to go over Ableton's Wavetable Synth and Wavetable Synthesis and why it's awesome and how you can use it. If that sounds good, please like, please subscribe. Most importantly, please stick around. Thanks to all of you, my channel is now monetized, which I am so unbelievably grateful for everyone who's watched these videos. I really can't say enough. If you're interested in supporting me, I do now have membership tiers. You can check those out below. It's just a very simple way to support me. Eventually, I will go deeper and make it a whole thing. For now, it's a simple way to support me, but let's dive into it. Okay, wavetable synthesis. Wavetable synthesis is subtractive synthesis, or at least in the realm of what we're doing here with Ableton's wavetable synth. Now you're like, what is a wavetable synth? A wavetable is a collection of short looping samples that are arranged together. So you're kind of sampling in a way, but you're not, but you are. You could do lots of crazy things with it depending on the synth you're using. Anyway, I'm on the Push 3. I'm using the Push 3 instead of Move or the Note because I get the full editability of Wavetable. I get the tactile response of the knobs and the pads, but then we get the screen that shows us everything that we're doing, where Move and Note don't show us quite as much detail. But as I'm saying all of that, this video is still a very good tutorial for you if you want to understand more of what wavetable synthesis is and what wavetable is on Push or on anything else. Everything I'm saying will be completely relatable and useful to any type of wavetable synthesis. Just a quick reminder that a wavetable synth, which is a subtractive synth, has all the usual suspects. It's got some oscillators, it's got filters, it's got envelopes, it's got LFOs. Ableton's wavetable has 2 oscillators and a sub-oscillator. It has 2 filters, 3 envelopes, and 2 LFOs. And as I said that the envelopes very confidently, I need to look again. Yes, oh, thank God. To get to the layout, you press this button, which is the wavetable, and it has a little arrow on the bottom right to open up the whole device view. Now you're looking, and if you're new to Push, you're like, well, it didn't change. That's because we were on the main view, which is what this view is, which is great because it's now, you don't have to dive into it if you don't want to dive into it. So for our purposes, we're going to go to oscillators. So we have, in this view, it is telling you what oscillator you're on. That this is the wavetable, this section right here, which is saying it's on in the category of basics, it's on the basic shapes table, and it's on position 0 or 0%. Now you have a pitch for the oscillator, and then you have the effects type, and then the parameters for the effect. In the wavetable that we're going to be working with today, it is the basic shape. So you have a sine wave, or you have a triangle wave, you have a saw wave, and you have a square wave. Pitch is self-explanatory. The effects types are what's interesting. You have 3 options outside of none. You have FM, which is frequency modulation, and frequency modulation is similar to how it sounds. It is using a frequency to modulate. I know that sounds vague, and I know that sounds a little passive-aggressive. I'm not going to go deeper into frequency modulation and how it all works in this video. But for our intents and purposes, if you modulate the frequency with this, that's the type of sound you get from it. And it's using the frequency to modulate. Now, if we go to Classic, Classic provides 2 modulation types that are common from classic analog synthesizers. PW, which is pulse width. It's adjusting the pulse width of the waveform. Again, a reason that I wanted to do this on Push is because it shows you really nicely what it's doing. So this is the basic form. I mean, it moved a little bit, but this is what it looks like without the pulse width. And then if I move the width, now you're seeing that it's changing the width of the pulse to have more space to the right. So the sound, let's go back to 0. So now if I go pulse with positive percentage, it just makes it sound thinner to me. Now let's go negative. And then sync applies a hidden oscillator that resets the phase of the audible oscillator, altering its timbre. So now if we go to sync, Pretty neat, right? And now the last one, the third one, is modern. And modern is more of a distortion type to the waveform, which adds a warp and a fold. Not that complicated, right? I mean, the sorcery that's going on behind the scenes, I don't think any of us need to know unless you're building one of these. But oscillators 1 and 2 can be the same or as different as you want them to be. Oscillator 3, or rather the sub-oscillator, is a sine wave. So it's just a pure sine wave, and you have a volume or gain, and you have tone, and the tone is adding harmonics. If you don't know anything about waveforms, the more harmonics there are, the different the shape is, and in the basic waveform that we're working with, from the 0%, that's a sine wave with no harmonics, just the pure note, all the way up to full harmonics. Although as I say that, a saw wave has all the harmonics, and a square wave has all the odd harmonics, so I'm not going to question it. The purpose of the sub-oscillator, it goes from a sine wave to adding harmonics. That's what it says in the manual. It doesn't describe exactly how many harmonics, but if we listen, it doesn't seem to be making it fully a saw wave, which is useful when it's a sub-oscillator because you want it to still have the rumbly bass, which requires it being more of a sine wave. It's probably leaning more towards sine and triangle. And then you have the octave, so you can have it multiple octaves or no octaves. For us, let's leave it at -1. And then the last thing in the oscillator view is you have the mixer. So you can change the pitch of both oscillators, the gain of both oscillators, and then the gain of the sub-oscillator. Now let's move on to filter. You have 2 filters like I had mentioned. They all can be all the different types of filters. So for what I'm probably going to use in this video, I'm going to imagine that I'm going to use a low pass filter, and I'll probably use a high pass filter because I usually keep it pretty basic. So as far as the view is concerned, you have filters 1 and 2. You have whether the filter's on and off. You have the filter view. You have the filter view. You have the filter circuit. And then you have the routing. The filter circuit has 4 circuits. So you have clean, which is basically using EQ8, but in the filter shape that you choose. If you don't know what EQ8 is Ableton's main EQ. The OSR circuit option is a state variable type with resonance limited by a unique hard clipping diode. This is modeled on the filters used in a somewhat rare British monosynth and is available for all filter types. MS2 uses a Salon key design and soft clipping to limit resonance. It is modeled on the filters used in a famous semi-modular Japanese monosynth and is available for the low-pass and high-pass filters. SMP is a custom design not based on any particular hardware. It shares characteristics of both MS2 and PRD circuits and is available for the low-pass and high-pass filters. PRD uses a ladder design and has no explicit resonance limiting. It is modeled on the filters used in a legacy dual oscillator monosynth from the United States and is available for the low-pass and high-pass filters. Okay, so now routing, we have serial, which makes me hungry. We have parallel, and we have split. Serial is what it looks like. Both oscillators go into filter 1 and then filter 2. Parallel routes the 2 main oscillators into filters 1 and 2. Split puts oscillator 1 to filter 1 and oscillator 2 to filter 2. The global view, we are not going to be here hardly at all, but for purposes of continuing to explain what's going on, mono is turned off, but this is your mono option. Polyphonic voices is currently set to 8. Unison mode, whether you're on or off. Unison voices, if you're using it. Unison amount. Transposing the entire synth. And the volume of the synth. Envelopes is pretty straightforward as well. So you have 3 envelopes. You have your amp and then 2 modulation envelopes. So there's time and slope. And then you have attack, decay, sustain, release. And then you have the loop mode. The 3 loop modes are none, trigger, and loop. None will hold the sustain portion until a note off message is sent. Trigger will play all segments once a note on is received, loop will loop the entire envelope without holding the sustain until the voice ends. I can't say I've ever used this knowingly, so we're gonna leave it off for now. LFO, you have which LFO you're on. You have the types of LFO, which we have sine, triangle, saw, square, and random. You have the shape, which is going to change the shape. And you have the rate, which you can also sync it if you want. So you can have it in hertz or you can have it synced to your tempo. You have the amount of the LFO, which makes it bigger or smaller, the waveform bigger or smaller. You have the attack, which will change the attack. So if I go like this, it makes it thinner or bigger, which is actually kind of fun. You have the phase offset, which will move it left and right to change the phase. And then you have retrigger, which can be on or off. And retrigger will retrigger every time a note is pressed. If you don't know what an LFO is a low frequency oscillator. A low frequency oscillator, you might have recognized one of the words in there, is an oscillator that is a low frequency. Lower than we can hear, typically. And what that means is it's used to modulate circuits, traditionally. Okay, now the matrix, the left side is the target of the modulation, which you're going to be like, well, there's not very many things here. We can add them as we go. This is what the position of the currently modulated source is. So you'll see it changes, like oscillator 1 position. When we have a filter in here, we'd be able to change the frequency. And then these over here are what the modulation sources are. So you have all 3 envelopes and 2 LFOs. And if we want to quickly, we can press on these buttons and go to modulation sources. This view we will not use at all, but it is the MIDI and MPE. I have everything off. The slide is on 1. Let me actually, can I get that to 0? Yeah, cool. Now that we have the overview done, let's make a sound. I'm going to start with this sound, this first oscillator at, let's go a saw wave. Let's go a little less than a saw. I like that. I'm going to leave these off. Okay, now we're on oscillator 2. We have to turn it on. So now it's on. Now it's currently just a sine wave, which is kind of cool because it adds a lot of like body. But let's go more like triangle. Actually, wait, it's already kind of a triangle wave. So let's see what happens if we go square. I think this will be cool because it's adding like a good high end, but we need to go to the mixer and turn it down. So let's try like -6. Let's go a little lower. I like that. So now we go to the sub oscillator and let's turn that on. I don't know that we really need the sub, but let's see what it is without it. I'm going to leave it on. I don't notice much of a difference, but I'm going to leave it. Okay, let's actually go up an octave. It's like... Okay, so you might be like, well, that sound is just kind of like a lot of notes, kind of a lot of nothing. Yes, but where this gets really fun is, and what makes Wavetable special, is all of the modulation possibilities in here. So let's take the amp envelope, and we're going to go to the matrix, and we're going to take the amp envelope, and I'm actually going to change oscillator 1 position up with the amp envelope. So now, and let's lower it a little so it goes. So what it's doing, you can see on the screen, is it's going above the saw back down to the triangle. So now there's a little bit more texture there. So now what could be also interesting is we could do the opposite to Oscillator 2. So if I go over to Oscillator 2, and then I go position, and I go add to matrix. It's added to the matrix, and now we can go negative. What do we get? So now there's a little bit more texture happening, right? So let's see, like here's what happens if I turn this off. So, or if I go back to the negative 40. It's subtle, but it adds a little bit of character to the sound. So now that we have a little bit of character happening to the sound, let's go to the filters, and I'm gonna leave it in serial. And for now, I'm just gonna use one filter as a low pass, and let's add a little bit of resonance. And let's go down. I almost always use a little distortion. I like the way the PRD looks on here right now, so that's what we're gonna go with. Okay. And I think what could be cool since we're in serial is if I go to the second filter and I turn it on and we continue to do a high pass and add some resonance to it, but then we can go, let's go with like a sharper filter type. What do we got? Let's do the halfway in between one. Okay. So now, that's probably too much. Okay. So right now it's like, whoa, there's a whole lot going on, right? So if I go back to matrix, before I can go back to matrix, let's go back to filter 2. I'm gonna tap on frequency and I'm gonna add it to the matrix. So now we're back in the matrix. And I'm gonna add the amp envelope negative to it again. So now, but what's fun is I can go way higher. It's doing very little. But I also have filter 1 really open. So let's go filter 1 here. Okay. Now if we take an LFO, and we're gonna have it affect filter 1, but we need to change the LFO first. So the rate, this is a lot happening, so we want it to be a lot less. But I think what could be cool actually is if we take the attack and go higher with it. So the waveform is gonna go small to big. I think that'll be really interesting. I'm fine with the shape. I don't need any of that. Now let's go back to matrix and add LFO 1. We didn't add the filter yet. So I need to go filter. So I need to go back to filter, make sure I'm on filter 1, hold on frequency, and then add to matrix. And then now take LFO 1 and turn it up. So let's see what happens. Let's go to filter so we can watch it. So that's too much. So if we go back to the LFO, and instead of amount, we go amount to like 30%. Okay, I'm more comfortable with that, but let's slow it down. I would even go less. just heard as I'm doing this, if I go to the matrix and I'm gonna go this filter, but I'm gonna put it on envelope 2 and I'm gonna go 40% that way. Now we're gonna go to envelopes and go to envelope 2. And let's see what that does to the filter. That has a lot of character. See, that's pretty fun. And I don't feel like that was too complicated, right? I mean, it's a lot of stuff happening, but I don't feel like that was too much. I think at some point you may have been like, okay, but what does this have to do with move or note? Well, I'm going to open Note on my phone. Forgot to turn off autofocus on this camera, so that's actually pretty helpful. If I go to the Ableton Note app, open a new set, let's go to a lead sound, like a synth lead, okay? So now we have basic OG lead, right? Done. So now you can see we have filter cutoff, resonance, wave position, fold, attack, release, glide, unison. Now if I go in here, I'm going to go over to this MIDI channel. We're going to go plus, device, instrument, all the way to wavetable. So this sound, this is what shows up on note and move. So you have filter, both filters, resonance, drive, arp rate, wave effects, and then the 2 effects on it. So we're hearing the sound. It has a very quick envelope that's going very quick attack, a quick decay to probably like half or less than halfway. It's actually probably all the way down. That's why it's giving it the sound. And then we already see the frequency of the filters, but we have a high pass and a low pass filter and the resonance. And then you have drive, which is driving the filter somehow. There's an arpeggiator, the wave effects. I don't hear very much happening with that, so I'm not exactly sure what that one's doing, but then you have echo and reverb. So those are the 2 effects unrelated to it. All of this to say, now you have more knowledge on how the sounds that are labeled as wavetable work on note and move and on push. And you should know a lot more about subtractive synthesis and a little bit more about wavetable synthesis. And hopefully that knowledge helps you create music that you enjoy more with a little more knowledge and power. If you like this, please like, please subscribe. If you want to support me, you can sign up for a membership. I'm super grateful for everyone for being here. Thank you so much for watching. I think I'm going to do more videos like this. If you like this, please let me know if there's something that you've been wanting to learn how to do, and I'll probably make it. I'll see you later.